Hey everybody. So today working on a 2015 Focus SE hatch, doing rear shocks on it. Thought I'd show how I would do that. I've done the driver's side already, so I'm going to work on the passenger side here. I'll show you the driver's side one that came out. As you can see, it leaked all its fluid out. It let go pretty well last week driving down the island, until the symptom was a very bad vibration. It had been there for a couple of weeks, but I thought it's because I'd put the snow tires on. Maybe one of those was slightly out of balance. And then driving down last week, it was just really, really bad. So did all the suspension checks at the front first. They were all solid. So went to the back, checked, jacked it up, and could immediately see that shock had absolutely let go. So car has 172,000 kilometers on it, 110,000 miles. So they probably don't owe me anything anymore. So I went and ordered KYBs. I'll show you those in a minute, but we'll get to work here. I'm assuming people know the basics here. I've jacked it up in the middle, at the back, and I've got jack stands at the jacking points here. So obviously jack stands, be safe. I'll get the wheel off and we'll show you how these come off. Okay, so wheel off. We can see here, this is the rear suspension, brake assembly. Here's the shock we're going to be taking off. Now, this one hasn't let go like the other side, but I'm sure it's going to shortly, and clearly you wouldn't replace just one. So typically on these kind of rear shocks, the top mount is inside the vehicle. You take some trim away and undo the bolt. On this generation of Focus, it is not. The attachments are in the wheel arch here. There's a casting on top of the shock absorber, and it bolts up with two 10mm bolts. Let's see if I can get some light up here and show you where we're going to be going to get that. You can see it there. There we go. So there's two of those, one on each side. They hold the top of the shock absorber in place. And then down here, I apologize for all this, there is a bolt. Where is it? Right there. So that's a 15mm. That's the bottom of the shock. We'll be taking that off. I'm going to be using an impact gun. You shouldn't have to if you don't have one. These shouldn't be on that particularly tight. Certainly the 10s at the top aren't on tight. So we'll get those undone and the shock out, and I'll show you what it looks like so you understand what you're taking apart. Okay, so everything's undone here. I'm just going to pull this shock out. Here, just guide it out. There we go. So this is what you got. There's the top. So you can see where the two bolts go into this casting. We're going to reuse this casting. It goes back on the top of the new shock, as does this new cover. There's where it mounts to the suspension, a little control arm with a 15mm bolt. So those are the three you're going to undo. Okay, so here's the shock absorber in the vise. Here's the top where it mounts up into the body. You can see two bolts. Those are the N10 or rather 10mm sockets you'll need for that. This is the threaded end of the shock absorber rod. So we've got to get this bolt off, and then this casting will come off, as will this dust boot. 13mm, give me a little range. It's on there good. Okay, these are torqued on there. Are pretty darn good. So okay, it's loosened. Now, there is, so you can see there's a flat here to stop the rod from turning. So Got to put a wrench on that. I just put an adjustable on that and then undo this. Now, clearly because I'm videoing this alone, I can't do that with both hands and that. So I will undo this and then I'll show you taking this top end apart. Alright, so these are what I'm replacing the shocks with. These are KYB gas adjust shocks, decent brand, should have good life, they're good quality. I bought them from Rock Auto. Great price delivered here for the pair of them. Basically half the price of going to the local auto parts store and buying them. So yeah, they come in box here. Anyway, so there we go. So I've got to just assemble this with the boot, the bump stop built into the boot, the dust boot, and then put that housing on top, bolt it all down. They also do supply the bolt that goes on here, so you don't have to reuse the existing one. Obviously same thread, the only difference is for these ones it's a 12 mil wrench to put it on, there was a 13 to take it off. But same size washer and everything on it, so replace those. We'll put just a drop of Loctite on that as it goes on, make sure it doesn't let go, and we'll get this shock assembled, ready to put in. Okay, so the housing just slips over like that, and then this will move up into the housing, and then the bolt goes on top there. We'll tighten that, we'll snug that up, and it is ready to go in the vehicle. Alright, so there's my new KYB shock installed. I'll give you the order of operations I did it. Slide it into place. I start the bottom bolt, the 15 mil socket one first, get it about halfway in, and then I tackle the two, require the 10 mil socket up at the top. And two things to note there. One, when I took those out, you can see there's a Loctite patch that was on them originally, so I used a little Loctite back on them again. They have a spec of about 40 pounds-feet of torque, torque them to spec. The bottom one's 85. And what I noticed when I put it back in, there was perhaps the slightest little gap between the casting and the top of the body, the underside of the body where they made up. And I didn't want to use the bolts to pull that gap up, just in case for some reason it stressed that casting and broke an air off. So I put a scissor jack just under the suspension and just lifted it very slightly so there was no gap there before I tightened them all up. May not be necessary, but that's how I did it. So anyway, it's installed, it's done, everything's torqued down. Next thing to do is put your wheel back on, torque it to those lug nuts to spec, lug nut bolts to spec. It's about 100 pounds-feet of torque on those, and we'll take it for a test drive. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful for somebody, and drive safe, everybody.